Hello. Hey. All right. Welcome. I've been doing a lot of thinking once again, so I'm happy to be back here. Been doing some reading, Sorcery, The Invocation of Strangeness by Thomas Sheridan. Didn't get to do as much reading today as I would have liked, but that's okay. I still had super productive time today. It was kind of interesting. I had been running around all day. I don't think I ate enough food, and I stood up really fast and passed out. My daughter saw me fall, and I think I kind of blacked out. Which I've had dizziness before, but it just kind of freaked me out because, of course, I'm with my kids. My husband's not home from work yet, and it just made me realize how important it is to explain to the kids what to do in various emergencies. Because I had to call 911 for my mom when I was about 10. So it's kind of scary. I scared my husband when he got home, and I told him, he's just concerned and cares about me. So, anyway, but I found it really interesting because he was at work just before that happened to me. He was at work and he kind of got lightheaded and dizzy. So I don't know. I just find that to be coincidental, and some say there are no coincidences. I don't know. Maybe there's something to be said about the human body and electricity, how it affects us. So I have yet to really dive well enough into The Invisible Rainbow, A History of Electricity and Life. But I do have a lot of different books on my plate, and I realized, I was finding it frustrating that I wanted to be able to study really hard and focus. And there have been some books that I've been able to read rather quickly. But there have been these others where it feels like I'm being constantly interrupted, and I was getting frustrated with that. And then I was trying to reconcile my frustration with being distracted and having interruption. And I just realized it was okay to put the bookmark in the book and just be paying attention to the signs that are all around me. And that's why I've been taking notes pretty diligently while I'm reading, and I'm trying to review the notes just before I continue to read further. And I thought this passage from Sorcery was really powerful, and we're talking about H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu is one way I've heard pronounced. That's how I want to pronounce it in the future. Cthulhu, the Cthulhu that once lay dead and dreaming within the depths of the human psyche, does appear to have begun to move up to the surface of the collective consciousness, which any Jungian worth their salt would be only too quick to recognize and understand. Lovecraft's sorcery is indeed working on the psyche level for the time being. Cthulhu is here. Shifts in human consciousness and cultural convulsion have always been complemented with the subaquatic monsters representing the symbolic depths of the society undergoing these changes. By becoming something of a Captain Nemo, exploring these psychic depths beforehand can save you from being consumed by them when they finally emerge. In reference to that, I've just been thinking about sometimes the necessities of constraint and hardships, because if we're able to fully embody certain lessons and know that we can overcome hardships, a future hardship isn't as difficult. So I think that's kind of what the feeling, the sense of Thomas Sheridan's message in Sorcery is just, if we are, with our mental energy, if we're creating, if we're manifesting these monsters because of our fears, then how do we change our mindsets? How do we recognize when we're in that mode of manifesting, say, by way of fear versus the manifestation of by the way of love? And they're different. So I think I've been thinking a lot about this because there's so much doom and gloom, and I do feel it is a dark time. It's not to say that's not real, but we do have to learn. Like, for example, I was talking to somebody today. I ended up jabbing her ear off for like 2 hours, but she's somebody that really inspired me to become more bold and to do the hard work that's required to speak with truth and to be honest and to speak up, because I used to be really afraid of what the repercussions would be if I were to speak up. And suddenly I'm fearing the repercussions of if I don't. I've been dancing around this idea for a long, long time. And today I had 2 really powerful, long conversations. And one was with somebody that I knew I was going to have a long, hard talk with, because it's a member of my family that we really disagree philosophically on a number of things. And the relationship has been loving and accepting, but I'm still living in this fear of, like, if I were to tell this person the truth, then they would judge me. And that was keeping me away from talking to them. And I just realized that I want, if I'm going to be really authentic and honest with myself, then I also need to be able to talk honestly with these people in my life that I know I'm going to get some flack, but it's so much better to get flack from them than to, like, ghost them and have no relationship, because I think they've proven that they do want to maintain the relationship with me. And I just have to be comfortable enough to speak my own truth to them, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to deal with all my bullshit. And I've had definitely a lot of mental challenges. And, that's the one thing that's always hindered me the most, is trying to be perfect, trying to be accepted, trying to be perceived as, an image of something. And even though there are many times in my life where I acted very free-spirited, I wasn't truly acting on my best in my best nature. I wasn't serving my true life's purpose. And so I was like a toe in the water of digging into truth, and I could never fully wake up. And I feel like now I'm finally waking up, and it's really scary because I know it's going to challenge even further some of my relationships. But at the same time, I feel that I've been learning to temper myself and better recognize what my triggers are so that I don't allow those triggers to trigger me. Like, I hate that right now there has to be a trigger warning or a qualification on anything that you say, because even though many of us are emotional and damaged and traumatized, I think that it doesn't help to continue to shelter people. I think that there has to be a point where we learn to have these difficult conversations with some people we disagree with, but maintaining some respect and learning to meet them at the table where they're at. And that's what really struck me with the Canadian truck convoy is those folks were asking for weeks for a sit down at the table. And they treated them like dirt. And they treated them like they weren't worth having a conversation with. They're not. Their excellencies and the global summits around the world. They're just our truck drivers that don't agree with our policies. So let's just ignore them. We don't need to have diplomatic negotiations with those folks. And I think that's what my big takeaway was that whole situation, it really seemed to me to be a lost opportunity. But the effort was still made. I think the spell was cast on the side of dialogue. And I think we need to continue that message. I just listened to a conversation today with Professor Hamamoto and John O'Loughlin on McDuff Lives 3 channel, and Professor Hamamoto, they both have their separate channels. They did a great conversation today, and I've been trying to be using my social media as a tool for good, and I'm not really engaging in the posts with the people I know to be challenging. I mean, I'm going on Facebook to observe what's happening and to gauge where people are at. But I'm not getting into the fights. I will not. It's not that I'm afraid of being confrontational when necessary, but I'm not going to go and pick fights. And from the YouTube community, what I've realized is just the power of community here. Even though there's a lot of things maybe working against these small channels, I think there's still a lot for us to learn. I think even though this particular platform has been on for about a decade or whatever, I think it's just the very beginning of people learning how to use all these technology tools for good. And by that, for me, would be rather than tearing people down, we don't waste our energy on that negativity of being hateful to people. Now, if we're going to be critical of folks, I think we still need to give some room for understanding the place that they're coming from. Because if we hope to change people's minds, I don't think we do it by berating them. I think if that's our mode, then it just shows where we still have some work to do on ourselves. So that's one thing I've been working on, being mindful of and being conscious of my parenting style, my parenting approach, in trying to become accountable to my children with an open dialogue. And the one thing that's an issue at hand right now is today is excuse me. Today's Thursday, March 31st, 2022. And in the United States, people have been posting about calling today Trans Visibility Day. And I really genuinely think it's important to love and respect and make space for people. And I think that I've been an advocate for individual rights for as long as I can remember, because at a very young age, I was told by my dad that he was gay, and I had to reconcile those concepts from a very young age. And one of the things I thought of saying to my peers when I was growing up, whenever the subject would come up in class or something like that, I would just say, "Hey, I have a dad that's gay. It's just, the thing is, it's not a character trait, you know?" And so I think that when we pick out certain identities, when we do this identity politic, I think somehow when we're trying to emphasize the importance of some subgroup, and in terms of in entertainment and media, giving people opportunities to engage in the culture and give people representation, I can understand that. It's just, I fear that we're missing out on the point of individual rights for all, because we're saying, oh, well, this group of people is especially protected. You know, a crime against this or a crime done in this way is particularly egregious. And I just fear that there's something that we're missing when we react that way. And I know that I definitely have my limitations. I have a lot to be educated on, and I open the opportunity to have some dialogue. And it's not that I'm saying, hey, please berate me and tell me all the ways in which I'm wrong. I am asking for kindness and understanding in this dialogue, because you just have to understand the ways in which people are naive. Like, that should be okay. That should be acceptable. And I just hate the way that we are acting right now in a public sphere. Like, it's okay to call for just such terrible actions against one another with which we disagree. I think as a tactic, it's counterproductive, you know? Although I see it as being somewhat natural in a sense that that's how people are going to act. So I don't know. There's a lot to dig into further, for sure. But I'm open to being enlightened, to being introduced to other people's content. I've been trying to participate in some dialogue with other people in live chats on the channels that I've been really engaged with. Those really small channels with very few but high quality people in the chat. And I think it's just really exciting where it's moving, at least for me. I am feeling a sense of calm despite the like the chaos magic that seems to be going on. So I'm just trying to continue to learn how to process my thoughts in a way that is healthy. And I definitely realize that we put ourselves at great personal risk to challenge any status quo. And I don't claim authority. I just have a perspective, and I actually look forward to my perspectives continuing to evolve, and I look forward to identifying the ways in which I didn't quite get things right, but I was making an honest effort. And I think one of the most important things that I would want to convey to anyone out there is just to pay careful attention to your children, because I think we're putting a lot of stock in like one part of a conversation, like the fact that trans kids commit suicide in high numbers, and that's a tragedy. It's heartbreaking. I see that, kids now, girls are going through puberty earlier. And I just wonder if the fact that like our mental maturity is, as adults, as parents, is we're emotionally stunted, a lot of us, due to a lot of the unresolved trauma. And so collectively, I wonder how that's affecting our children. And if humans are trying to evolve differently because of what's going on with the collective psyche, is that affecting our reproduction and our fertility? Because there's a lot of different things that are pointing to declines in population by 2025. And you can look at insurance actuarial information. My generation, the millennials, the so-called entitled generation, we're about to face something, apparently, that we've never had to go through, and that's scarcity. But I'm wondering, what if what we're doing is we're attacking the psyches of these children, and they're being attacked so hard that they don't even want to reproduce anymore. Like they want to sterilize themselves at a very young age. I went through that same idea. I had asked a nurse about getting my tubes tied at like 19. And they were like, "Oh, no doctor would do that. Because you're really young and you would want to wait. You'd want to make a decision like that maybe when you were a little bit older. Give yourself a chance to change your mind. And so maybe I could have pushed for it, but I took that first warning, and I'm certainly glad that I did, because I can't imagine having been able to come to this place of maturation without my kids. I think they have really given me the best reason to pull my head out of my ass and to learn some things, because when my niece was born, I realized how little I knew about the industry of birth. And I'm so thankful my sister had her kid before me, because I followed her lead and had 2 great pregnancies and birth experiences. And I'm just so grateful that I didn't allow myself to be sterilized at a young age. But yeah, I think it's really important that we look at mental health as a big picture, and consider that the things we're putting kids through now, they're just bombarded with messaging on what their identities should be. And the funny thing to me, the sad thing to me actually, is that we're playing kids for our own adult issues. We're using kids as like a justification for acting in a really short-sighted way. Like I've heard presentations from trans folks that have advocated against, medicalizing children, because it's hard enough to go through puberty, and to then add different hormones to that, while at the same time they're going through puberty and their brains are growing a lot, and they're having to deal with just life. I'm just afraid that some of these measures that they call gender affirming, every single one of them that's not a permanent thing, I think is important, because I've had my own experimental ways of dressing and wearing my hair and things like that. I love getting dirty. I love doing dirty jobs. I love doing certain things that are on maybe like a more masculine spectrum, but like I'm still very feminine, and I don't feel any less feminine because I'm wearing baggy clothes and really dirty and don't wear makeup, And so I just fear that like it's the psychology of telling kids that this is what a woman is, or this is what a man is, this is what a real man is, this is what a real woman is. And it doesn't have anything to do with whether or not you can reproduce. But I think for many, many people that have had children, and if you think about it, like, I'm not saying that everybody needs to have children. I would never force people to have children. So obviously that would be crazy, right? Yet we're doing something really weird right now, because all of us were born So even if we were to decide, like, parenthood is not right for me, that is so fine. Like, I totally respect that. 100%. But your parents are parents. So, we do have to understand some of our parents' traumas, some of our own traumas, and work through those things. I think before we get to that generational healing, to where if, say, I were to be able to come out of my funk of deciding I'm not going to have kids, and then I change my mind, yeah, I should be able to do that without consequence. I shouldn't have to adopt or use a surrogate, if I decided that I wanted to have a child. But I just feel like there's something really fishy going on with, like, using the "we want to prevent suicide" message to medically castrate a young person. And I think these are conversations that we're going to be having, because my neighbor used to have a sister and now she has a brother, and I totally want to give that child love. I totally do. And this is not a conversation I would have with them directly, unsolicited. That's not my place. But my place is definitely to appeal to other adults that might be in the space of having anyone in their family be in this suicide watch space, because I just think these identity issues are really indicative of something much bigger going on in a collective psyche. And I'm not going to be well received by certain people. I know this because I read their posts and I know where they stand, and they think that what I'm saying is intolerance. And I'm so sorry that you feel that way, because I am a genuine ally. Like, I would never treat anybody differently because of what they looked like. And like, even like the worst people's behavior, like, in my life, I have been challenged so often by working with people who are obviously traumatized because they're complete assholes. And I've worked so hard on those relationships, because it's self-serving to be kind to people that you have to work with. It just is. It's in my enlightened self-interest to be kind and respectful to others and to try and hear them out. And I think it should go both ways. And I think that my place should be respected. My position should be respected, because it's individual rights that really matter. And I would welcome you in my home, and I would feed you, and I would look out for any one of your kids, no matter what they were going through, fully. And I would call them what they want to be called, and I would give them my respect and autonomy. You know what I'm trying to say. I would respect them as individuals, and I would work my ass off to find a common ground. And me being concerned about the preservation of their reproductive health would be just the same as like me not wanting to let a kid get burned by a fire or get hit by a car. I would run and stop them from getting hit by a bus. If it wasn't my kid, I would just instinctively do that. I feel I genuinely feel protective of all life, and I would definitely throw myself under the bus for standing up for people. I mean, that's what this is. That's what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to stop bullies. And I think that the irony of some folks trying to protest bully politicians, as it were, is they become bullies themselves. And they really make it more about like a virtue signaling, celebrating one group or another. And I don't think that they genuinely give two shits about actual individual human rights at that point. Because if they did, they would have some respect for the people with which they disagree. And I think that you can fully disagree with people, and what actually shows people more respect than anything is like calling them to account when it needs to be done. Like, that's what we need to do as citizen journalists, is call things to account. And so I'm definitely doing that for myself as well. I'm trying to check myself. I'm trying to check my message. Because ultimately it is a message with nothing but love in mind. All I want to do is arm someone with my point of view. Maybe if only so they can see that someone being naive doesn't mean that they, that their feelings about a topic should make someone feel personally attacked. You can't always take things as a personal attack. Some of these serious bullies, they have their own dramas. And you don't need to have them in your life, but you can try your best to be respectful of others. And that's what I'm trying to do. So thanks for listening, and we'll talk again in a couple days. Good night.